Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to our channel. We're offended, you're offended. I'm Kim. This is Tyler.
And we have a guest with us today, Amy. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah,
a little bit.
My name's Amy. I live in Winnipeg, where I was born and raised. I'm a pretty average gal. I got 2 kids and a house and a significant other, and 3 cats.
Okay,
and I like to work.
Good. Okay,
that is a good thing.
Yeah.
So, well, I guess to kind of get things started and get things out of the way, I guess. So, I want to hear your story, and I came across it, and it blows my mind more that your story is just like a microcosm in the bigger thing that's kind of happening here.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I guess before we get into your story, you check us out on YouTube, on Rumble, or on Spotify, on Anchor, Apple, wherever you can find podcasts, we'll be there, or on, like I said, or YouTube, Rumble. We got a shitty Patreon. We got a shitty Discord. We have a lot of shitty things. So
Facebook, Instagram, don't forget those. And don't forget to like, subscribe, thumbs up, thumbs down, leave a comment. All those fun things. Okay. And welcome, Amy.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so I initially came across your stories. You'll be able to explain a lot better, but just I guess basically, you were working obviously for a company for quite a while, and then the whole vaccine mandate came in, and then
Well, hold on, let her tell the story.
That's why I stopped. That's why I stopped.
Let me spin you a yarn.
Okay.
So I've worked in the building industry for a long time. I have a 20-year background in the building industry in a lot of various roles, but mostly what we call front end. So working on pre-construction stuff. And I'm unique in that I really like to do work that a lot of people don't like, which is how I kind of got my edge, I guess. So I like reading complex technical documents and looking for finicky details, and I like writing specifications and writing technical documentation. Most people hate that shit, but I really enjoy it. So anyway, I kind of got this it's like the culmination of all the little bits and components in my career landed me into this role. That's I guess my job title is architectural and technical representative.
Nice.
And in some ways it's a glorified sales job, and in other ways it's a really important kind of hub of a job wherein I help architects and other specialty consultants understand and select products that are appropriate for their projects. And then I help contractors and their staff understand how to choose and purchase the products and how to apply them properly. Then I inspect the work to ensure that it's done correctly on large commercial projects. So I came into this role in January of 2020, having not worked in a role of this nature before. And in specifically this niche industry, the roofing industry in Winnipeg, which is small, and where I'm already, it's easier than it was 20 years ago, but it's still tough to be a woman in the building industry. And it's even tougher to break into roofing, rebar. These are kind of the rougher trades that are even more male dominated. So excuse me, I like a challenge though. So I was pumped. I took this job, and then of course, just as I'm getting my sea legs in March, everything shuts down. And so although a lot of my job should involve taking people out for lunch, taking people for dinner, occasionally taking people for drinks or to concerts, that kind of thing, that's some of my job. I couldn't do any of that. And I came into a market here in Winnipeg where our company had been really lagging for several years. They had bad reps and gaps with no reps in the region. There was a lot of lost trust. So, in fact, several of my clients, when I first started, literally were like, I feel sorry for you. Like, you're in a really bad market, you're in a bad situation. And I would laugh and I'd say, it's okay, because I know I'm a hard worker. I know you're going to be able to count on me. I'm going to give you good service. I used to do your roles, so I know what you need. I'll take the time. Don't worry, I'm going to look after you. And I really enjoy the job. I would have worked at this job till I retire. But then started with the vaccine talk, and I was surprised because the ownership of our company took a really strong stance pretty early on and was like, I went and got the vaccine right away, and I urge you all to, volunteer. He even used the term guinea pig. Like, I'm being a guinea pig. I hope you will too. And I'm like, whoa. It's one thing to like, but I thought to myself, you know what? Okay, if that's something he believes in, and I believe in, people being free and able to do what they want. He privately owns this company,
right?
And has his family for 4 generations. He can say that if he wants to put that out in a fucking inter-office memo, like, that's his prerogative. That's fine. So I thought, you know what? That's fine. If that's what he believes, that's okay. Cool. I would have never thought, for what it's worth, this company is owned by Jewish people. They lost everything.
Wow. Okay.
Like, they literally, like, they escaped. They lost everything. They lost their company in Europe. They came to Winnipeg, actually, and restarted. Wow. And then actually got screwed once here, too, and then had to start again. So you'd think this whole situation would be kind of near and dear to them. But so then we got this memo. This is, probably earlier in the spring, a memo saying that anybody who wanted in the factory and offices, like, I work a satellite role. Okay, our offices are in Toronto. I'm the only person here in the region. I'm all by myself. There's nobody else.
Okay.
So it's just me. But they started saying, people who work in the factories, people who work in the big office buildings, they can voluntarily disclose, and then they can get a button or a sticker, and then they cannot wear a mask.
What?
Indoors. Yeah.
Okay.
So the Jewish people.
The ones that came from communist authoritarian rule.
Yeah.
That understand
Yeah. They were like, if you volunteer your information, you can have this privilege. If you wear your sticker or button clearly displayed, you can have this privilege. Now, what's interesting is everybody that I talked to said nobody bit on that. Nobody did it.
That's so ironic. Like that,
okay, sorry. I'm a little confused. What did they want them to wear?
So they wanted them
badge,
to
whatever.
So if you got this button that has a V for volunteer, then you could be in our facilities without a mask on. You could go to work at the office or go to work at the factory with no mask if you voluntarily disclosed that you had been vaccinated.
That's very ironic.
Yeah.
Coming from, you needed to display a certain star on your shoulder to indicate your status in it would be in this organization. That seems really...
Right? So a few of my colleagues on our national team, like, it's tough because we're sprinkled across the country, right? So there's like 1 or 2 of us in each region. So a few of my colleagues, though, when we got that memo, we were like, that's weird. Even my manager was like, that felt uncomfortable for me. And I mean, we're talking, we're a national company, and they are globally manufactured and distributed, right? So it's a big place for my manager to even be saying to me, his employee, yeah, I felt uncomfortable about that too. So that was weird. And like I said, nobody really participated. Like at our distribution centers where they have more staff that I know and I see, like, they didn't get on board with it. So then it came that they said they were going to make this mandatory by September 30th. And what was interesting was September 16th was the exact day that the emergency use authorization expired for these vaccines in Canada. So they said everybody had to be double vaccinated and 2 weeks past their second dose by September 30th, which is exactly 14 days after September 16th.
Right.
Right? So they did that. And then even more interestingly, they sent out a policy document, a new safety policy document that we had to read. And then we had to go through this, we have, again, because it's a big company, we have to go through this online portal into the HR system and acknowledge that we read this document. So there wasn't just the usual checkbox that says, I acknowledge that I read this important safety document. There was another box, and it said something to the effect of, and these 3 points were highlighted. I acknowledge that I read this. I understand that it's necessary, and I agree to participate in the policy.
Ooh.
Really?
And I was like, no way. No way am I signing that. And again, what's interesting, we were supposed to sign that by end of business day on September 16th, Friday, 4 days before the federal election, which was on September 20th, a Monday.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. So I just ignored all of that. I have an employment contract that does not stipulate any requirement for me to disclose personal health information, right?
Yeah.
And I sent questions to HR that they never answered, including giving them safety information, because it's super interesting. This mandate doesn't apply to factory staff or office staff. It doesn't apply to anyone who stays on company premises during the course of their workday. It only applies to those of us who are in satellite roles where they can't watch us, or who leave the premises, like managers who maybe go for lunch or go out to meetings. But what's interesting is, yeah. And so our main factory is in Ontario. And I knew right away, I was like, Ontario's heavy production. They've got lots of factories. So I knew I'd be able to find stats on it. So I looked at the Ontario government, and they have five categories where there was workplace transmission worth tracking by industry. So actually, the number one you would think would be healthcare, but it was agriculture. And then it was healthcare. Then it was manufacturing, and then transportation and warehousing, and then just other. So every single other workplace fell into the other category. So out of what was at that point, which is about 4 weeks ago, a total of close to 600,000 deaths, cases, not deaths, cases, close to 600,000 cases in Ontario to date. Only 1,245 were associated with the workplace. So 0.22% of all cases in Ontario were associated with the workplace. So super small amount in the first place, right?
Yeah.
But of those 1,245, over 700 were in manufacturing. So more than half of them.
Yeah.
In the one industry, in manufacturing, where the company has always had control over the environment, right? Throughout this entire pandemic, they've had the same control they have now, which is requiring everybody to keep distanced and wearing masks and blah, 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 right? But still, they had the highest transmission out of all the workplace, more than healthcare.
That's actually pretty surprising because, I know during the initial stages of the pandemic, everyone was saying, look at our nurses, and we have to be worried because if a nurse contracts anything, it's going to put a bigger strain on the system than what's already present, because they'll have to isolate for 2 weeks. And that was the big concern.
Yeah.
Well, and they're the ones that are literally directly related to people with COVID. They're treating them, stuff like that. They're right there touching them. You know what I mean? That is very surprising.
Yeah. But it also just goes to show, I think there's a factor there associated with tracing, because healthcare workers weren't having to isolate and test as much. They were exempted from a lot of that in order to keep them working. And so I think that also deflates the case counts in their field. And also, I mean, look, just like what healthcare workers just keep going to work. I mean, when you're like dog ass tired and you've been working 16s for days in a row, you don't notice that you have COVID symptoms.
Yeah, you're just run down.
Like, it's just feel like garbage all the time, right? Yeah. You have no awareness of that. So, anyway, so looking at that, and then I looked at in the construction industry, I think there was like a possible 30 some cases. So what I do is I either go to someone's office and have a one-on-one meeting, or I do a presentation in like a big office. And that hasn't happened in all this pandemic shit. Nobody wants me in their office. Our kids don't want me in their office. They're all working at home. They don't want me around. Like, they're busy. They only want me if they need something from me, And in the contracting community, I'm going outside. So it doesn't matter, right? I'm outdoors. So I looked it up though. And here's the interesting thing. In all of that, in all those factors, in all of those cases, there were 2 deaths. In manufacturing, transportation and warehousing, and construction industry combined. In all the cases between those, there were 2 deaths associated. And that's like the contact trace stuff. Like, that's not just the people in the workplace. That's like if they made granny sick later on when they went home.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So that's all of it. So that's 1,245 out of 600,000, like 0.22 cases of all. And that's even the ones that went home to granny. And only 2 died associated with those, like 800 and some in total that were in the manufacturing, transport, construction,
which is extremely minimal.
So low, shitty but low. So then I look, but you know what? So my chances, like in a per capita, are like nil, right? Like 0 for those things of dying of COVID. Me in the course of my workday, but every year, more than 100 people die just in Ontario alone. In the construction industry, and most of it's working from heights. And I want to know what kind of products that I sell. I sell fucking roofing material. So I'm at way higher risk every time I climb a ladder for the company and go up on a roof. Way higher. Like to the tune of like 5 per capita, 12 per capita. It's 5 in manufacturing per capita per year. And it's 12 in construction per capita per year. And it's 0 for COVID.
Well, and that's, I think with the mandates, and I've voiced it many, many times, I'm not anti-vax by any stretch of the imagination.
Like, what do you want? I don't care.
Yeah, like I brought it up before, and I've had some conversations, and they say, well, why are you anti-vax? I'm like, I'm not. In fact, like, and it's a, I don't know, it's not like a soft flex, but it's like, it's just being honest and kind of disarming the situation when I say, like, I was probably vaccinated before most people, like for my age group that I was available for, because I looked at the information and I looked at my situation and I said, you know what, worst case is I have a bit of a reaction to it. Well, actually, worst case is that I have a severe reaction to it and die. But, but that's so insignificantly rare. Like, I understand some people that talk about it and they hyper focus on it to the extent that it becomes like that's all you'll focus on instead of well, let's look at the real numbers. And
wherefore art thou temperance? Yeah. Like. Is like my saying lately, can we just bring some temperance to things? Because it doesn't have to be extremes. I think that's what people like really end up disliking about me. Sometimes like I just like swim in gray area all the time.
But that's I think that's normal. Like I can understand or at least see both sides of an argument. There are some, like when people say, oh, I absolutely love Joe Biden and everything he's doing, I think is great. I go, really? Are you looking at the information? I've said, like, I've come around to Trump because I understand what he's trying to do, which is a lot better than someone saying, this is all your fault and it's this person's fault. You should give me power so that I can fix your problems. Like, what? Look at our healthcare system. Everyone harps on it. It's shitty. You're waiting 16 months, 2 years, 3 years to have a minor surgery done. Yes.
Yeah, but it was shitty already.
Yeah. Yeah. It was already I'm not making the comparison. So I'm not making the comparison that this is like the flu. Hopefully, when it becomes endemic, it will be like the flu. It will become that. But right now, we're getting towards the endemic phase of COVID. But just a regular flu, like a regular flu season, well, I shouldn't say a regular, but a particularly bad flu season overwhelms our hospitals.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this.
Yeah. And another factor is, look, ICUs are always running at 90 or more capacity because staffing in ICUs is 1-to-1.
Yeah.
You think they've got, like, when they talk about, okay, 90% capacity, that would mean that there are 10 nurses per 100 standing around. 1 in 10 nurses is just standing there doing nothing.
Yeah.
Well, see, right? It's funny because in one of our old podcasts, I had actually looked up how many beds that they have in the ICUs across Canada, like per province. And it was literally like, I think the BC had the most at like 150 beds. And I think we have like 115 or something. But that's basically the range, is from 150 to... Oh, yeah. Wait, or did BC have like 200?
BC, I think it was like 217 or something, but...
At Manitoba, before this all started, had 72, I think, or 69, one of those. And then they brought it up to 172. And there was one point where I did the math, and this is, I can go back and find it because I typed it all out, but where I did the math, and we actually had 4 more ICU beds available than we ever had without, like, in the end, even with all the people in there from COVID, like, we still had extra beds compared to what we normally would have available. Right.
Without COVID involved. Yeah.
Right. But this is a big factor. So Health Canada has been being told in private reports for literally decades that they need to bolster the system to deal with aging boomers. In 1976, we had 6.92 hospital beds per capita in Canada. And that number has dropped every single year since. And we have 2.52 hospital beds per capita today. So we have this drastically reduced actual in-hospital service. And some of that is because we're giving people better quality care, outpatient care, home care, that kind of thing. So I recognize that that's not a complete 65% loss of care service available, right? Some of that's been reallocated. But the truth is, when it comes down to it, and we have a natural disaster, and I'm sorry, but a pandemic is a natural disaster, in my opinion, then we don't have capacity. And in most of Canada, we get to ride pretty easy as far as natural disasters go. We're not here worrying about tidal waves and hurricanes and stuff, right? Like, really, right? I mean, once in a while in Manitoba, we get a little nervous about a flood. We deal with forest fires here and there, but those don't typically present a lot of risk to human life.
Blizzards, the tornadoes, that's pretty much about it.
Right. And so we have like very low casualty and injury rates from these things, though, right? So, when you look at that, we sort of get to live in this easy breezy thing where we don't have to worry a lot about increased capacity due to some kind of event like that. And then we ride too simple for too long, and all of a sudden something comes and we don't have, anything to look after it because we've been chipping away. We have this admin heavy system with like tons of high level people getting paid a lot of money to sit around and do nothing. And they have the power to protect their jobs. So whenever there's a shuffle, it's not them who go.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. It's always the people at the front.
Right. So we also have like way fewer nurses per doctor now, right? So we have a doctor heavy system. The average income of a doctor in Canada, average, meaning some make way more and yes, some make less. The average hovers around $400,000 a year. So that's why they're out there screaming that we have to keep everything shut down too, right? Like, because they make $400,000 a year, so they're okay. They don't give a shit if you don't get to go to work? You know, they don't care about that. They don't care about the restaurant owner or, you know, the little mom and pop store or whatever, right? Because they're putting $400,000 in their pocket.
Well, yeah, and their job isn't going to go anywhere, right? Like everyone's always going to need a doctor.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and like my slant is always, I always look at I would look at government policy as opposed to like individual people. And maybe that's my own naive or my own bias that I don't trust government institutions most of the time. And
yeah,
you can go, it's so easy to go down the conspiratorial hole, you know, about the Great Reset and the World Economic Forum. And we're just, you know, transitioning to a global, globalization.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's very easy to go down that road. And, you know, there are elements that, yeah, we are becoming more a globalized world. But I think of, you know, there are some like scientific shows that I watch, and, you know, they talk about like colonizing other planets and what it would be like on Earth. And one thing that they always seem to leave out is we don't all appreciate the same things. Like North America is very new in terms of civilization history. It's like Canada and the United States are babies in terms of, you know, other countries.
Right.
And like our ideologies are very different than, you know, well, we could use the example of, you know, China, of Russia, of several Middle Eastern countries, even European countries. Our ideologies they could be similar in some ways, but, you know, especially if you look at like China and you look at Russia and North Korea is a good example. You see the way that Australia is going. Okay.
Yeah. You know, Canada.
Yeah. Well, and the policies that we're starting to dictate, it's scary to see, because I'm sorry, I'm not a fan of being told you can and cannot do this. Just shut up and do your job and just be a good little slave till you die. Feed the system.
I'm not good at that. No. Which is why I don't have a job now.
Yeah. Which,
okay,
you know what?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So I would say, like, I applaud you for that. Like, you're a lot braver than I think a lot of people saying, well, then I walk. Like, I'm not playing this game. I'm not going to be a part of your system, man.
Yeah, I'm not chattel. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what ultimately, what was the I guess the policy? Was it because of that September 30th mandate that you said, okay, fuck this, I'm gone?
Well, so I still am technically an employee of the company right now.
Oh, you're one of those.
So what's happened is I said I'm not going to disclose. There's nothing in my contract that required me to disclose anything of that nature to you. And I'm not going to participate in that. And they, you know, tried to make justifications about how I need to be able to take people out to restaurants and things. And that's why I mentioned that. So in my market, even though I came into this dog market where we were not very popular, and while we were in a real uncertain time in markets everywhere, I brought our sales numbers up 40% over multiple quarters.
Wow.
In my region. And it's not because I was like taking people out. Like, look, I'm a chick working with a bunch of married guys in their 40s. they can't go out drinking and partying with me, right? Like, they can't do that because they're gonna get divorced if they do that. You know, it's like, it doesn't happen, right? Like, if I do entertain in an evening, like, you know, last summer when I could a little bit, it's in a group. It's often me being like, bring your wife, along, and I'll bring my partner and we'll have dinner together or whatever, right? But that's not what's getting me sales in the end. It really isn't, because look, the truth is, like, I'm a fun gal, but like these people, they don't want to kick it with me. Like, I know how to deliver what they're looking for. I know how to take care of them. So make sure things go smoothly. So I say to the company, they're like, well, you have to do this, and it's no choice. It's only vaccination. You can't do regular testing, because you need to be able to go into restaurants and go to sporting events and concerts, and you need to be able to get on a plane and travel and go places. And I say, well, I have a company car. I work by satellite. I'm supposed to be, on the move. So I can drive for our once a year meeting in Toronto. I'll just drive and I'll stop at my dealerships in Ontario, because Ontario is part of my region too, some of it. So, and they're like, no, there's no other choice. I say, give me a religious exemption. Like, this is a deeply held belief for me that I don't inject things in my body that I don't understand or don't feel are appropriate for me. And no, nothing. So my boss went to bat for me. President of the division went to bat for me, but neither of them got anywhere with it. So president of the division phones me, implores me again. And I did say to him, I said, like, look, all due respect, I said, I'm not chattel. Like, I'm not just like some of your property for you to like run through a flea bath and send back out in the field. Like, that's not how this works, And I said, you're screwing me and my kids and my family. And he's like, we don't want you to feel that way about it. And I said, you're not going to tell me that. I was like, you're not going to sit on the phone and say that to me. Like, don't even try. You're absolutely screwing me and my kids and my family. That's what's happening here. So don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining. But yeah, so they said, no, then you have to come October 1st. If you have not, and this is their exact wording, entered into a vaccination pathway.
A vaccination pathway.
God. That's I don't know. Something about that, just like the way it was said, reminds me of like some Scientology bullshit. Like the way that they like talk about it is like, what?
Yeah, exactly. That's why I stressed that that's their wording. Like, it's super weird, like 1984, like almost like Brave New World, like messaging, like they're gonna play me a recording that says like everyone must enter into a vaccination pathway.
Encourage you.
Encourage you to be on the pathway to your vaccination, So, I just said no, right? I said, no, I'm not cool with that. You got to do what you're going to do. I'm not going to make it easy on you, though. I said, I'm not going to resign. I'm not going to make it easy on you at all. You're going to have to go the hard way and drive me out of my job. So I'm currently on indefinite unpaid leave and have had to return the company assets, like my vehicle and phone and computer and all of that stuff. The coolest part was they told me to like bring that stuff to one of our local distribution centers, where they did not advise the management at that local distribution center that I was going to be bringing those things.
Awesome.
So I got to stand with my colleague like in the branch and have him be like, what do you mean? And me be like, I'm on leave. They won't let me work. Like, that was super fun.
Yeah, it's really awkward.
Yeah, a little. Well, yeah.
And this is what, like, and I've always come down on the side of, you make the decision for you. I have, I don't understand, and I've seen the comments, and I've seen, people say like, hey, if you don't get it, you know what's at stake here. Why don't you just shut up and do it? Or, even the more cynical one is, well, if you get it and you die, I don't care. It's like,
that's just gross. That's just gross. And I'm like, you obviously don't care about people then. You obviously aren't compassionate, because I'm ride or die for healthcare. Like, I don't give a shit what you did to yourself. You go stroll in there and you go get yourself some public health care.
Yeah.
Like no problem.
How many stupid stories have you heard about someone shoving something up their ass and they feel super embarrassed and they have to go to the hospital? Like, well, you did it to yourself. Well, yeah, I'm sorry. I like stuff up my ass. I can't help it.
Exactly. Like, it's one too many wieners in it. No problem. right? Like, no, I totally like, you want to get loaded, do some speedballs, ride a motorbike out of a helicopter into the mountains with no clothes on, like, go for it, buddy. And then roll into the hospital. Like, I'm all over that. Like, go get your Narcan, go get yourself sewn up, whatever you got to do. I don't care. Like, but legit, like, if you really, really, really come down to it, most healthcare problems are at least at some level self-induced.
Mm. Well, and there was a comment that a post that I put on Facebook. I said, I think all fat people should be denied healthcare. I think anyone that smokes should be denied healthcare. You know, and Kim, you know, I know what you're trying to do, Kim, but that was the point. Like, at some point, a decision was made. But we don't say, hey, fat people, you know, sorry, you ate one too many cheeseburgers over your lifetime. We're not going to look at you.
Yeah. What he's getting at there is because then I had made a comment. I'm like, well, if you're going to go with that route, then, you know, anybody who eats fast food or over-processed food or uses deodorant, laundry detergent, sunblock, et cetera, well, all those things cause cancer. So in that case, you're willingly causing yourself potential cancer and killing yourself, or uses cell phones, which is radiation, microwave. Oh yeah, I just kept going. I'm like, so in that case, no one gets anything. Right? Yeah. Like, if you're going to be that ridiculous and cut certain people off and say you don't deserve it, well, because you did this to yourself, well, guess what? When you get cancer down the road, you did that to yourself.
Everybody then. It's everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. Well, like glass houses thing, right? Everybody's fucking around somehow. We're all, it doesn't matter what we go out there and say we're doing or whatever, like that. I skip yoga some mornings, you know, I don't like, you know, there it is. I made cinnamon rolls this morning and I had far too many cinnamon rolls for a person to have in a day, you know, like that's, we're all screwing around somehow. And that's the whole point, is each of us gets to decide. And, you know, I don't know if you've ever heard of this author. Her name is Catherine Schultz. But I became familiar with her actually from a TED Talk. She has a book called On Being Wrong, and she sort of jokingly calls herself a monologist. So I'm not sure if you're maybe familiar now that I say that.
Yes, I brought up a quote from her from that TED Talk. It was, how did it go? Feeling wrong and feeling right. Feel good right up until you realize you're wrong.
Yeah. So she asks the group in that talk, she says, what does it feel like to be wrong? And people first start saying, oh, silly, embarrassing, you know, foolish. She says, no. That's what it feels like to realize you're wrong. Being wrong feels just like being right.
Yeah. Until you realize you're wrong.
Right. And so, but the thing is, the irony is, everybody who watches that talk still thinks that they're not the one who needs to watch that talk.
Yeah.
But she says another thing in that talk, and I think this is the even more important thing, the bigger takeaway. She says that we psychologically go through 3 processes when we see someone who doesn't agree with us. So the first thing we think is that they're stupid, that they must be ignorant, they must not. First we think they must not have information. So then if we show them information and they still don't agree with us, then we think they're stupid. But then if we can see somehow, let's say it's someone we've known a long time, we really respect them, they're highly educated, or we have a lot of like reasons to see that they can understand the material, you know? If we get to that place, then very, very quickly we go to believing that they must be bad, and we dehumanize them because we can't reconcile that this person could have the same information as us and have the same capacity to interpret that information, yet come to a different conclusion.
Yeah. Well, this is actually one quote that was actually, I think, one of the first things I posted on my Facebook page. And this was a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, and it's quoted as, "I cannot remember the books I've read any more than the meals I have eaten. Even so, they have made me. Mm-hmm. And, some like that always meant your experiences, your upbringing, your environment, the way that you interact with your environment is totally different than I might have interacted with my environment. And that has made me who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like it's very much like, say, well, there's a lot of eyes on the U.S. right now because, Trump and Biden, and it's an insane statistic. Like, hardcore Democrats think that the economy in the United States is doing good or great, and then independents and Republicans, it's something like 60 or 70% of them think the economy is either doing bad or like really like terrible, like the economy is falling apart. And it's weird to see. You can, it's like watching a movie and two people are seeing two different movies.
Yeah.
So, like, with that information, you could hear, and this is when I suddenly tuned out. Is I was reading 1984, and Theresa Tam, our public, our doctor, our Lord and Savior, just like Fauci, said we need to eliminate wrong think. And I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
We need to get rid of wrong think. That phrasing came from a book specifically about the government controlling your own thoughts.
Yeah.
Everything you're aware of that. Like,
yeah, like that's the wrong choice of phrasing, honey. Like,
yeah. Or was it kind of, haha, they were right?
Yeah.
I read 1984 as well, children. Yeah, I understand that you recognize that word. So we need to eliminate
intelligent people. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, all you intelligent people out there, here's me just like rubbing your face in it, right?
Yeah. And that's kind of what it seemed like. And the fact that information was withheld, and I bring up the other one. Well, it was from the public health officers in Ontario. And I can't forget this because this is a major thing. And it was a hot mic moment, and both of them had papers in front of them. And the lady says to the gentleman, I don't even know why I have all this stuff. I just say what they tell me to say.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What?
And didn't Bonnie Henry in her new book that's out, she's got a quote in there where she basically says, like, well, there was a certain point where I knew that I had to like continue with the messaging that I was being scripted, or I would lose my job.
Yeah, you instead of speaking out, and I brought up like in other things about like Derek Sloan. He got kicked out because he was talking out against it. Rick Nichols got kicked out because he was saying morally and ethically, I cannot get this vaccine. Oh well, then get out. What?
Well, and here in Manitoba, because our premier has stepped down, like Brian Pallister stepped down.
God.
Yeah, and now there's this open seat. So there's a temporary premier, but they're not we don't have a full provincial election. So the party needs to elect a new leader for the party to take over the role of premier for another 2 years.
Yeah.
So there are certain criteria that need to be met in order for you to run in this internal election. So this guy, Ken Lee, opposed the mandates. He put himself together. He met every single criteria required. They then tried to close him out and tried to say that some of his existing member signatures were invalid. So at the very 11th hour, he replaced those signatures. He got it all done. And then they just refused to sign his nomination. And this is the biggest problem with our entire political system in Canada. Every single nominee, every single constituent or would-be constituent still needs to get approved by the party leader in order to be able to actually run for that constituency leadership, and never mind then be able to run in an actual election for their MLA or MP seat or whatever, right? So this is how, so they just closed him out. He needed to get 1,000 signatures in support, 1,000 new memberships in support. He got more than 4,000. They just closed him out completely. Like, he met all the criteria and they just, boom, wouldn't sign because they don't want him running, right? So it's a really tough situation when you have this, and this happens at all levels of government, and then they just parachute someone in, and that's what, like, the other two contenders, Shelley Glover and Heather Stephenson. Heather Stephenson is totally like a parachuted in contender for this spot, right? So it's really scary watching this stuff go down, and there's so. Just going back to your comments, like regarding, the World Economic Forum and stuff, like, again, I'm real pro temperance, but when you sit and just read what Klaus Schwab has like publicly out on that website, it's like bone chilling.
Yeah.
It's really creepy to listen to this person talk about how, like, oh, maybe we could have a microchip inside you and we could even sense how you feel when you're watching certain media.
Yeah. Like,
that's unsettling that you thought about that and then thought it was an okay thing to type that idea out instead of just like putting that deep down in, the darkest parts of your soul.
Yeah, I brought up. Oh, sorry.
No, that was it.
But so I don't mean Kim. Well, I actually got really, really emotional about this. And so I've always looked at it as, so like, people have, I've had people approach me, say, hey, like, I'm investing in stocks. And I'll say this now, I am never going to give someone, you need to pick this unless they absolutely trust me. And I've done enough research that I can say those things, but I will never tell someone just generally, hey, go do this. But, I've had people approach me and say, hey, I invested in stocks. Okay, that's cool. But what did you do? Oh, I had some money, so I threw it into stocks. But what? Like, did you research it? And then
like which ones?
Like, and I would say, well, these are the types of things I do. So I try to give that information. There's YouTube channels I follow. There's some reports, especially the ones that, like, the stocks that I was involved in. I look at the reports and what are they doing? Do I agree with the company? Do I buy from the, just very generic things? And they're just, no, I just do what I want. Okay. But I also look at, in terms of, so I kind of bring that up to say, when I was looking at running for office, I was like actually looking at running for MP for Transcona and Elmwood.
Cool.
And so I see a lot of talk about, we need to, keep going forward. If you're not vaccinated, oh, well, then you get sent to the back of the line, or you become a second-class citizen. And what made me emotional was I almost look at our society as, some people, well, I would look at it as like a ship. We're all on this ship together. And it's not the shitty analogy of, well, individual choice. No, it's not that. But it's, if there is a hole, the bottom, kind of the bottom rungs of our society, the people that are in poverty, the people that are destitute, are trying to actually make a difference in their life. And, for whatever reason, their economic situation, they just can't. And I always tried to look at, well, I'm extending my hand out saying, hey, no, you can come this way. There's a breach in your cabin. It's filling up with water. Come to the ladder. I'm trying to help you. And that made me upset, because I'm just trying to, either give information or educate people so that, you don't need to buy a bag of chips. You can buy a bag of potatoes. I know they cost a little bit more, but trust me, you'll be a lot happier. And it seems like, especially with this COVID thing, it just became, oh, well, charge on forward and leave them behind. I'm not about that. I'm not a fan of progress just for progress' sake. And So it kind of, to see, like, in your position, your company's saying you're either moving along with us, or you're yesterday's news.
Yeah. I mean, it's, and I guess the part that I get, it kind of sticks in my teeth more than anything is, for the entire almost 2 years that I worked at this particular company, there was supposed to be another person working alongside me, but there wasn't. So I literally covered an entire other job role for all that time. And at the height of the pandemic, we had several jobs in like the middle of nowhere in Ontario that needed inspection. And I was the only person across 3 different regions who was willing to go.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else refused to travel due to the pandemic. But I got in my car and I drove around in the middle of nowhere in Ontario going to remote sites. Because, honestly, because it was fine with me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because I was more than willing to go. It wasn't under duress. It wasn't because I felt pressured as a newer employee. It was because I was fine with going.
Yeah.
Because I didn't mind. I was happy to go, And that was when there was no vaccine at all, and the company was happy to have me driving around, going out places. Like they weren't worried about my risk then. And that's the big factor is this isn't because anybody gives a shit about anybody. It's for image and liability.
Yeah.
And nothing more. But I don't understand, and this is corporate collusion, and this is concerning to me when you look back at history. And for what it's worth, like I come from a family of Russian Mennonites who like literally just spent their time like constantly escaping persecution throughout Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not going to say anything. I want to make a big distinction between Nazi Germany as a whole, like thing that happened over the course of several years versus the Holocaust, which everybody gets. You can't get to the Holocaust. Well, no shit. Nobody's in gas chambers. No fucking shit. It's not the Holocaust.
Well,
there's a cultural thing that occurs that leads up. You don't just dive into the middle of 1984. Like things happen. See that Hitler didn't just like get elected and then start knifing Jews in the street. Like things occur slowly over time, and there are signs and signals that lead up to this, right? So when we say never again, we didn't mean never again will we let millions of people get killed. We meant never again will we ignore the signs of shitty stuff happening and not step in. That's what that meant.
Well, and I brought this up before, the 10 stages of genocide.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is when a country is now either falling apart or it feels it's losing control. So it becomes more and more authoritarian. So, anyone look it up because, and I'm not saying like, well, because of these steps, but no, it's a trajectory. And I think I brought it up when I was talking about, I was kind of drawing the distinctions, like, so, because everyone thinks, that, well, one day it was just Hitler, he somehow got elected and everything went to shit. Well, no. There was already a feeling. He was saying the right things.
Oh, Hitler was the Justin Trudeau of his time. Like, make no mistake.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm having a bog rip right now. Hitler,
Canada,
Hitler
baby.
Canada, exactly. Hitler was the JT of his time, like legit. Like the same stuff, right? Like Hitler got out in front of a parade. Hitler got out there and was like talking about the popular stuff of his time. Scientists and doctors and corporations supported and colluded with him. Almost all medical and scientific professionals were members of the Nazi Party.
I don't know. I don't think, like, when I see Justin Trudeau talk, and like, I've watched like Hitler's speeches, he's energized, he's engaging, he's saying, the Jews are the reason why your life sucks. They're the reason. It's the transients. If we can take back pride and make our country proud again. Justin Trudeau is saying the opposite things. He's saying Canada is systemically racist. We are racist up and down. Jagmeet Singh was saying Canada is a systematically racist country. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Really.
Do you forget? And you know what? And I'll say this: Jagmeet Singh is East Indian. Actually, and I've said it before. He's a Muslim sympathizer. You know what? It's not mine. I don't go and support countries or support groups of people that are actively seeking to undermine a country. Not my thing. Not my thing to blow people up. So, but Justin Trudeau is
like at that base level. I have friends that are Muslim, for what it's worth. Like on an individual, like I think people need to be judged on their merit, and that's where I love the bit of the Manitoba Human Rights Declaration that defines discrimination, because it says excluding someone based on their actual or perceived membership in a certain group.
I'm a little opposite with that.
Well, but hang on, but then it adds rather than their personal merit. And I think that's the piece. So I don't give a shit what you're associated with, like externally, your personal merit. To me, how we interact is what's significant. And that's the problem, like with anything becoming mandatory or statutory or whatever, right? Is that now there is no realm for personal merit. And like I think you saw, I shared this Ayn Rand quote the other day that's something very near the effect of like, the smallest minority is the individual.
Yeah.
You can't say that you support minority rights if you do not support individual rights. And I'm sorry, but that's like, there's a fucking period on that, and that sentence is over. I agree. But anyway, so sorry, I do agree with you. I don't think that it's a really fine line, even as far as like associating with China, or like someone was bitching at me the other day because I'm quite an environmentalist, but they were complaining that I have voiced some, I've shared things from Maxime Bernier and the PPC and stuff.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, hang on. I said, we got to get real here. I am an environmentalist, and using Canadian oil would reduce Canadian emissions by somewhere between 5 and 8%, based on most research. Yeah, because then we wouldn't be tanking in oil from overseas, from nations with questionable ethics and practices, right? Yep. So, like, I'm sorry, but we need to look at this in a bigger picture, because most of us are still using shit tons of petroleum-based things.
Yep.
And even as an environmentalist, like the products I would sell in my job role when I get to work at are all petroleum-based. But I happen to know that really good waterproofing and downproofing on a building is always petroleum-based. And the better your waterproofing and your downproofing, the better your building is going to function and the more efficient it's going to be. So it's a trade-off, like most things are. Most things aren't super simple black and white, and it's gross to try to distill them to that. That's also why I hate like left-right politics. I'm fucking complex, yo.
Yeah, like, I'm painfully in the middle on a lot of things. There are some things that I'm more right on. There's some things that I'm more left on.
Absolutely.
I think I'm like alt middle. 100%.
Like, I'm
libertarian.
Yeah, and that's always how I've now that becoming more and more involved in politics and more understanding, like, I don't agree with that group and I don't agree with that one. Like, there are two major parties. Traditionally, I would have been considered like a liberal. I should for all the things that I believe and the things that I think, I should be part of the Liberal Party. But I'm not. I don't agree in universal healthcare. Controversial. I understand people have the right to access healthcare, but I don't think it's anyone's job that I'm entitled to your work. That's where my distinction comes from. So I'm sorry, I don't work for free. I don't think, if somebody does, great, you're a better human being than me, that you're willing to just give away your work.
Well, volunteerism has the aspect of being a choice, though, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it can't be that whole, like, the government gives you 2 cows, you milk them, and you get a ration of milk.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, that's and then everybody says, see, we all volunteer and pitch in. No.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I'm sorry. I did the work. Like, I milked those cows. I took care of them. Oh, well, you need to share it you need to give it to the government first. And then you get whatever's left over, if there's any left over. Like, well, that makes no sense to me. That makes zero sense. I'm pro-choice, but up to an extent. So, yeah. Sorry, what?
No, sorry. I was realizing I was interrupting you, and I'm a terrible interrupter, and it's something I constantly work on my life as a person.
We all do it.
But, like, interestingly, what I think is, like, globalism is intended, like, they market, whether we're going to call it globalism or socialism or communism or, ethical, like social-minded democracy, but fucking put whatever bow on it you want. You know what I'm talking about? This whole thing where we all give ourselves up for the greater good of the rest of the community. Yeah. Right? Look, I would call myself an altruist. I would say that I'm a bit of a romantic, I would absolutely like stop and help someone hurt on the side of the road. I would help someone that I really dislike. I would help my ex-husband. I do help my ex-husband sometimes, Yeah. And like, there's like a lot of bad blood there that would be like a whole nother podcast or 5, but I believe in that. Like at the end of my day, I want to feel good about what I did as a person. And I believe that means that I make choices that feel right, to me, right? That feel like the good thing to do. Absolutely. I believe that.
Yeah.
But this global thing is so strange in that it's driving at us to say we need to be these people who do for the greater good of others. But what it's actually doing is disconnecting us from each other.
Yes.
And disconnecting community completely and turning it into this sort of cutthroat behavior, this everyone for themselves sort of then you don't get anything kind of behavior, right?
I don't even know if it's like everyone for themselves, but it's literally pinning one group against another group.
Okay.
Classification. Step 1. People are divided to us and them. Right. Symbolization. People are forced to identify themselves. So. Yeah,
no, we know these. And like, but the thing is then when it gets brought up, people minimize. Right. And that's a classic abuse tactic. That's a classic like manipulative abuse technique is to minimize and gaslight. Right. Oh, come on. So what? You can't go to a restaurant. What's the big deal already? What? You scared of a needle? Come on. Like, and I'm like, no. What's happening for me is I'm 38 years old and I'm in good condition. I take good care of myself. I eat well. I stay fit, and I have a good, strong history of recovering well from respiratory illness, which is something I'm grateful for. Mm-hmm. And because of that, because of those factors, and because of the fact that I did, like 11 years ago, have a bad reaction to an experimental flu vaccine, I feel more comfortable taking my risk of getting SARS-CoV-2 than I feel with getting that shot. That's where I'm at, And for me, like I've had lasting problems with my health ever since I had that other shot. Is it from it or not? Can I prove it? No. But is there like a deep thing inside of me that says I've never been the same since that? Heck yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And if I'm not gonna like without going in a bunch of detail, I had a super unhealthy relationship for like 10 years. And one thing I can say is I didn't listen to my gut like a lot, I didn't listen to my instinct. Like a lot of the time I pushed that voice down inside me. And you go to therapy and what do you get told? You get told, don't do things that don't feel good for you. Have boundaries. Say no. No means no. You decide what's right for you. Don't let other people walk all over you. All this stuff, right? And so here I'm and I'm like, I feel really strongly that I should not do this. So why is that not valid?
Well, and there was a couple things that I wanted to say. So, like, I grew up, don't give in to peer pressure.
Uh-huh.
Like, what? Like now it's saying, no, just do it. Everyone else is doing it. Why don't you get it? It's like, well, maybe I don't want to. And I'm not saying for like me personally, like obviously, like I'll say it again. I've already been vaccinated, and I understand, and that's why like I will never say, you need to get it or you don't. I don't know. I couldn't tell you because I don't know your medical history. Secondly, it's none of my business what your medical history is. I would assume that most people will make the decision that they feel is right for them, whether they do it or don't. That is your decision. What does Yoda say? Whether you do or do not do, you are right, or however the fuck he says it. I think I butchered how he said it, but
I think it was whether you believe you can or you can't. You're right.
Yeah. So, and then I guess to get back with the energy thing, like. Kim's rubbed off on me and she's turned me into this fucking tree hugging hippie, and I hate it. But you're welcome. I've the types of toothbrushes I buy they're wood. I don't need a plastic handle that's ergonomically designed. No, it's a toothbrush. Come on, you can't deal with a wooden stick for a couple minutes. That's not a big deal. And I tried to source soaps and other types of things that aren't so chemically ridden, like things that you can pronounce. And I understand that
or natural.
Chemists, yeah, but I don't know about natural, because everything is natural. Everything comes from the earth.
Yeah,
it's not like it just appears.
Based, I guess we could call. But
yeah, it's just so tough to put it. Yeah, but like how close to its original state is it? Or like I like to think of it even as like, could I make it at home?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right.
And so,
could I make this in my own kitchen and I'm just buying it for the convenience, or is this something really weird? Yeah,
exactly. And even to get back, like even a bit further to like the gasoline thing. I'm a fan of, I think we should be sourcing our own oil. We have so much natural resources in 2-3 territories that are virtually void of human life.
Yep.
And the impact of mining for these resources and I posted a picture in our Facebook group, and it was the iPhone 13. And on the back, I put slave labor mining cobalt. Cobalt is in all of our electronics.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just don't want to look at that. That's just a dirty little thing we don't want to talk about.
Well, and so we turn a blind eye to it. And the real or the inconvenience of, hey, you know what? Some child had to do this. Your phone was manufactured in a building where they put suicide nets up because people were jumping to their deaths.
Yeah,
that's where your phone came from. That's where a lot of our electronics come from.
Sure, and isn't it? Don't they use that shit in like solar stuff too? Isn't there like certain solar things that use
cobalt,
rare mineral
lithium?
That's problematic too.
Yeah,
this is awful.
Cobalt, lithium.
It's Did you watch that show, The Good Place?
Kristen Bell.
Kristen Bell.
I loved that show.
Ted Danson.
Yes, God, I love that show.
But so there's a point system to get into the good place or the bad place or whatever, right? And so at one point, though, they come to realize that the way this point system is set up, nobody can get into the good place because, like, if you bought a tomato that was like picked by a migrant worker who was like mistreated on the boat that they came over to the country in, that was like you lost points, right? But like you had no idea, you just bought the tomato at the store, right? So it's that whole idea that we're like transgressing against our fellow man like over and over and over again without really knowing it, or without being able to not to. Right?
You can't use that word though. You can't use our fellow man nowadays.
No.
Our fellow thing.
Our fellow humankind.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, yeah, our fellow people, fellow humans,
earthlings, dwellings. No,
you know what? I'm cool on an individual basis if someone wants me to call them a particular thing, just for what it's worth. Like, it's no skin off my back. So if someone asks me to call them they or them to call them Starshine or Cruella.
I'm a unicorn, so
it's not a problem for me, because to me, like, if that's what you like to be called, and it doesn't cost me anything.
Yeah.
But I do struggle a little bit when it has to be like inclusive
compelled
all
speech?
the time. Well, what I think is, so for an example, I do know one individual who is like they want to be referred to as they, and it's really important to them, and they have this long history that I understand because I'm close to them. And so I get it for them, and I care about them, and so then I say them for them. But I don't say them for every person in the universe, right?
Well, see, and that's the thing, because you're... Oh, sorry, you know?
Well, and so what I mean, just like quickly, is that if I see someone who very obviously looks feminine, I'm going to refer to them as she.
Yeah. Unless
she asks me not to. And then if she says, I prefer they, or I'm actually my preference are he, I won't skip a beat. Like, I'll try to do that. That's fine. It's just, to me, it's no different than if someone says, like, my partner, Daniel, he wants to be called Daniel, not Dan.
Yeah.
Not Danny. Daniel. And he'll correct you. He'll be like, I prefer Daniel. And then it's okay, right? Like, no, I don't want the person, if I screw up, I hope the person is gracious with me, or whatever. But like, I don't want to constantly call everyone who might be Daniel, right?
Yeah.
Like, if someone refers to themselves as Dan, do I call them Daniel by default until they give me permission to call them Dan or Danny? I don't want to be under stress all the time about it.
So the one other thing I was going to say, so with the gasoline thing and like our energy stuff, nuclear, everyone thinks nuclear is a disgusting thing. I'm personally, I'm a big fan of nuclear as opposed to burning coal and burning petroleum. Hey, we're fortunate that we have a lot of hydroelectric dams. Well, energy is always going to be a problem. So I think nuclear power is the future. Actually, I would say nuclear power is actually becoming outdated, because now they're actually looking at fusion energy. So
yeah, it's crazy, hey?
Yeah, France is building a fusion generator that is going to basically cut them off from Russia. They will no longer be dependent on Russian oil. But with the I guess kind of getting a little bit into like the pronoun kind of stuff, I don't really have a problem if someone says, I identify as this. I'm going to eye roll because I know where this is going. But my issue becomes if there was that kind of a national story about a restaurant that apparently that employees said that they wanted to be referred to as, I believe it was they, them.
Mm-hmm.
And the restaurant were kind of giving this person the gears a little bit. And it ended up culminating to when it went through court. The judge dismissed the fact that this they, them ended up striking one of their bosses on the back. They dismissed the fact that this person was terminated because they struck. If I had an employee come up and sock me in the face, you bet your ass you're getting your walking papers right then and there.
Right.
Definitely. I mean, it's shitty both ways, but like, I guess
I'm not a fan of violence. Well, hold on. I understand that violence exists and sometimes you need to be violent. But violence as a default position because someone said something to you, we all sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Get a tougher skin. So if someone says, hey, you know what? You're a piece of shit. I hate you. Good. Then hate me.
Well, yeah, and like, you just can't go around hitting people because they say things you don't like. Unfortunately, that is just the case, right? Like, like there are dicks out there and like people are going to tease you for whatever reason. Like, mm-hmm. I don't like things like that are at someone else's expense. Like personally, that's just not my sense of humor. I know some people get a lark out of even like pranks and stuff. For me, I don't like to get pranked. I don't like to feel like, fooled or that kind of thing, right? It's so I get, you know, for me, I would feel uncomfortable, you know. I get why that person is frustrated in their workplace because they're really asking for a simple thing. I also get why people are like uncomfortable about it because it's something new, and just new things are weird for everybody in the universe. I get it, right?
Change is always, it's one of those things where some people deal with change really well. Other people don't deal with change very well at all. And that's with anything. And this is a huge global scale where they're literally, you've grown up with he, she, you know, and when you say like, well, they were over, you're thinking there's more than one. So to then all of a sudden have to start changing all these things, it's going to take time. It's going to take a progress. And, you know, like you had said too, which I completely agree with, if this is how this person wants to identify as, and they want to be referred to as such, okay, no, it's no skin off my back. You know, I may, like my husband, have I don't know about the eye roll, but I'd just kind of be like, okay, maybe a little skeptic house, but you know, all right, well, if this is what makes you feel comfortable and this is what you want me to do, okay, I may not understand it, but I'll try my best. And if I say he or she in, just because this is something that's so, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, you're just so accustomed to saying. Like, just by mistake. Yeah, you just slip. Yeah. And if they're kind of like, they just like either like a slight kind of correction, or if they kind of, you know, just they're more gracious about it and just kind of, you know, correct you, or it was like, actually, I'm they, you know, okay. Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. But when you have those people that then in turn try to sue you or cause this big fuss because you didn't refer to them in the proper pronoun, that's when I start getting upset. And a lot of the times, unfortunately, when you hear people say they refer to as this, generally because of stuff in the public right now, that's kind of what it's surrounded by. Like when you don't call them properly, they all of a sudden freak out on you and stuff like that. And that's what causes a thing. Then all of a sudden you yourself have anxiety. You don't know how to refer to as people anymore. Like you can't say, like he said, what mankind, you can't say that anymore. You can't, you know, our national anthem changed, which I think is so ridiculous. That makes me so angry. Like I understand trying to, I guess, include people going forward, but why are you changing stuff from the past? Like, it makes no sense to me at all. Like, it's
just a matter of like, we like lions. When we say lions, if I'm like, oh, we went to the savannah and we saw lions, Sahara, savannah, one of them doesn't have lions. Sahara doesn't. Savannah does. Savannah is the plain. Sahara is the desert. We went to the savannah and we saw the lions. You're going to know that I'm talking about many lions and that some of them were lionesses.
Yeah.
When I say lions, it encompasses like the species of lions. If I say we saw cows, you might think that there may have been like, say, one bull, maybe two bulls there, right?
That's what it used to.
So we have a word for the species, and then we have word to identify. And sometimes it's actually a totally different word, right? Like horses, we have mares and stallions, right? Like, so that's nothing like horse at all. Neither of those words are like totally unrelated, right? But if I say we saw horses, you would know that there may have been mares and stallions, you know, involved in the group of horses, right? So in that way, I'm fine with like, and for example, they changed the name we had the Museum of Man and Nature here in Winnipeg, but they changed it to be the Manitoba Museum now, the name of it.
I'm okay with that.
I'm fine with that. Like, it's fine. I'm not upset about that. But just I do believe that some of it was because of the word man being called. 100%. And to me, I'm like, well, that's humans. Like, I didn't feel not included as a woman.
No,
in
not
that
at all.
phrase, you know? And when I'm on a job site and someone's like, hey guys, I don't feel excluded by that term. I know that I'm included when someone says, hey guys. And that's where I will admit, like, if there is someone around who identifies as non-binary or is trans or whatever, and someone says, hey guys, and they're like, we're not all guys. I'm like, you know what? Can we not with that?
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, why are you making it like, okay, if this is what you want to identify as, that's cool, but why does everyone have to make it a thing? It's like, okay, I get it, but guess what? I'm not a dude either. But, you know, you're just, it's a
so
greeting.
If I like refer to you directly, you know, I can totally get that you're going to correct me, and I can vibe with that. That's cool, you know. But like when it's on that greater scale, or you know, I have a friend who's a midwife, and she's like, I'm supposed to use inclusive language all the time. So I'm supposed to say like birthing person.
Yeah.
And stuff. And, you know, she's like, but most of my clients are women who want to feel like, are you okay?
Yeah, no, I just hit my head.
Okay. But she's like, most of my clients are women, and most of my clients really benefit from like diving into that idea that this is part of being a woman, you know?
Oh, and that, like,
that you're having a baby, right?
That's like hearing that birthing person sounds, you know what? Call me old-fashioned, call me, you know, an old misogynist or whatever you want. When you hear birthing person, that is such a stupid fucking term to me.
I just rolled my eyes.
It makes no sense. Like, you know, with you know, and I'll say, okay, actually, I'll say this first. So I looked up, where did the word man come from? And it is a Proto-Germanic word, which actually translates to person. Which is when we say mankind, that's just what it's become. Mankind actually means person kind. If you went Proto-Germanic,
humans.
Yes, it's just a you know, whatever. But so I have a problem.
It's just a word.
Yeah. So I have no problem if someone says, "Hey, you know what? I want to be whatever. I want to be labeled as blah." Okay, whatever.
Got it. But cool. I'm on board.
If I have someone that says, if you do not say that word, I'm going to charge you and you are going to pay me restitution because you hurt my feelings. But what? That makes no sense to me.
You know, and you kind of like bring me back to my other thought on this, which may be controversial, probably is controversial, probably straddles that center line.
You're talking about it in the right place.
If our goal is an inclusive society, like Star Trek, inclusive society.
Mm-hmm. It was,
like, let's get on the fucking ship and just like accept everybody the way they are. Then I also just like want to say that wouldn't it be okay to be a he and be into wearing dresses and lipstick and having long hair and painting your nails and being a guy also? Like, just wouldn't it, isn't that the kind of the thing, is that like you could just be being yourself and not need to like change the label on you or get surgery on your body to alter yourself physically to be different? Like, wouldn't it be okay for you to be who you are, the way you are, and not have to alter yourself to fit into a social box?
So
like, that's the part I don't get, is like, okay, can't you just be yourself, like as yourself? Like, does it have to be that you have a different pronoun or a different thing? Like, gender is a social construct. Why do you keep playing into it by caring about it? I don't know.
Yeah.
So there's a couple things that I did want to say. So I'm very logical in my thinking, almost to a fault, because I can understand. Okay, if someone needs to, I'll say this: if you need to validate yourself to other people, I think that says more about you than it does about the world in which you live in. That's your own thing. If you need to say, if you don't recognize my existence, like, no, you're here. You're a person. I'm talking to you.
Regardless stand in your root chakra and own it. Yeah.
Like you're a real thing. I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
And if you don't acknowledge that this is how I want to be addressed, you're dismissing my existence. So there was one thing that I seen from, everyone's talking about the Dave Chappelle and how he's transphobic and he's a TERF and he's all this psychotic stuff. So I actually looked up a quote, and it was actually from it was a trans friend of his, and she ended up committing suicide because people were saying vile, disgusting things to this person. So the LGBT community that's supposed to be all about inclusion and acceptance is very quick to turn on each other. But so the quote that she said was, and this was in regards to people punching down. Punching down requires you to consider yourself superior to another group. And her in reference to Dave Chappelle. He doesn't consider himself better than me in any way. He isn't punching up or punching down. He's punching lines. That's his job, and he's a master of his craft. So when I heard that, yeah, you're never punching down or punching up. Like for me, I think people are equal. Now, I'll look at our government and I'll say, well, they clearly think that women are nothing now. It's all about being trans and inclusive, to the point that men are entering into women's sports and demolishing records. Like absolutely demolishing them. And
that's so not right. That makes me so angry.
And so, let's say I think the LGBT community is something like 2%. I'll give you it and say 5% of our population is either lesbian, bi, transgender, and all the other alphabet soup that you want to throw in here.
I think it's more. I think it's like 1 in 5, actually.
I don't know. Like,
hey, sorry, just as a quick aside, wasn't there a woman who was in the Olympics and she had unnaturally high testosterone, but it was like just she happened to have those levels, like she wasn't found to be doping or anything, and then they ended up disqualifying her, right? But Phelps has like more prolactin than most males or something, and they're like, oh, what a wonderful natural benefit he has that gives him an edge.
Well, but in general, we recognize that, in terms of like the bell curve of humans, so of, traditionally, of men and women, men are stronger. Like the strongest woman, and you know what? This is just the realities of the situation. Men are just stronger than women. That's just how we have
different muscle mass.
Yeah.
And different hormone balance.
Yeah.
And makes your muscles work differently, and you can build muscle differently. Absolutely, that's just a fact.
Yeah, and
you have a different center of gravity too, right?
Yeah, and I think it's disingenuous when now we start denying biology, just inherently, and it's a cause for concern because I see some things happening. So if anyone watches Tim Pool, he brought up a real interesting idea, and I've seen a lot of people have kind of discredited it. But the idea of the study was the rat utopia experiment, and they've done this several different ways.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
So I'm sure you don't know about this, Kim, or anyone that doesn't know about it. So they gave these rats, they put them in a cage, more or less, and they would give them everything they need. Food, water, they had everything. It was a utopia. But naturally, what started happening when the rats kept reproducing over and over and over, they started forming like little clubs, or they became so infatuated with their own looks that the colony or the group would eventually just collapse. The rats became so fixated on themselves to the point that they were just grooming each other, just trying to make themselves look beautiful. And
really?
Yeah.
And there's a number in humans. It's something, it's got a name. It's like named after the, whatever anthropologist dude discovered it. But there's a number of humans in an anthropological group, like a community, where pretty much all the time, cross-culturally, over that amount, the community starts to break down and people start to infight and form cliques and separate. And that's the natural forming of smaller communities again, right? And that number it's not that big. It's only 150.
Yeah, well, that's Dunbar number.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. Thank you.
I know some stuff.
See? Yeah. Reviving with me there. So I think that's, at play with all of this, right? I think that's a big factor with globalism is like, that's why I can't be left or right. That's why I can't like say I believe in like some religious thing specifically, because like, how could I possibly agree with like some huge section of people on a whole bunch of diverse topics?
Yeah, well, even with like the PPC, like, hey, sorry, conservatives, I'm a card-carrying member of the Conservative Party of Canada. I have a fucking card says that I donate and I support you guys. This election, I did not, by no stretch, because they weren't talking to, I'm sorry, yes, I am socially liberal. I do believe in taking care of our less capable. I couldn't think of anyone that would say, oh, well, fuck them, let them die. Maybe there's some people. Well, obviously, if some people are unvaccinated, they think, well, fuck them, let them die. Well, that's not my thing.
Yeah.
But, when any group you put your name to, someone is going to come up with something that says, oh, you support this? It's like, well, no. Like the PPC, they were saying that, oh, well, that's a right-wing group that, because of this one party member was making, like, wild accusations. Like, yeah, anyone does that. Any group. You want to talk about the Catholic Church and how beautiful and perfect it is? No, there's literally histories of them raping children. And I'm sorry that's just... Okay, you can find bad in anything that's supposed to be altruistic and great.
Well, like also the Crusades. Yeah. Like, this is not... What's that other quote that I shared the other day from C.S. Lewis about how, like, the greatest tyranny is that done in your best interest, right?
Yeah,
like
to yourself. Yeah.
To be forced with an idea that the person, like, perpetuating that force against you is doing it in your best interest because they're constantly, like, consoling themselves for it, right? There's, like, another similar quote that says, like, the only thing worse than the bad things a man does is the excuses he tells himself to console himself for them.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
well, and I think about this stuff, and, like, I listen to other people's opinions. I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert in any of this stuff. I'm trying to do the best stuff that I think is for me and possibly for the people that, people around me. I don't think that that's unreasonable. So when someone says, you have to get vaccinated, well, why?
Well, sorry. Yeah.
No, so I was just going to say, like, in terms of, like, with North America, we have so much prosperity. We literally, there are homeless people that are overweight. We have there are homeless people that have it better off than some people that are working jobs. So we have, in terms of our wealth in North America, in Western nations, we have better life than, William, like, Rothschild, like, the oil barons of the late, like, 1900s. We have more wealth than we could possibly imagine. Our ability to acquire things of our own desire, of our own need. And, I see stuff like what's going on with China. With Russia, their military ads, they look fucking badass. It's, bulked up dudes with their equipment on, and they're shooting and doing all this, military stuff. And you see in North America, well, I grew up with two moms and I supported human rights across the world. No. No. In Canada was famous for World War I, storming the fucking beaches.
Yeah.
Vimy Ridge, they made a flower that commemorates Canada. I believe it's, I can't remember if it's France or Poland. Like, Canada went in there and just kicked ass. North America in general went in to save Britain, France, all these countries. Belgium.
Canada went into both wars before America did.
Yeah, we were there.
Yeah. I don't know what's happening right now in our country.
But I think we have so much wealth and we're so comfortable.
Everybody's cushy and nobody knows their history.
Yeah. Well,
you've gotten this history about, and look, I'll be the first person to say, like, I know like the effect of intergenerational trauma. I know that there is damage from colonization. I'm not going to bullshit around that. Like, I know that because look, I got raised in a nice, like, middle-class family and I have damage from my upbringing. Okay. Yeah. So like from just like literally just like growing up 150 years ago would make you a total disaster.
Yeah.
Like, statistically speaking, right?
Yeah.
So I get that. There's a lot of stuff there that there's damage there. Absolutely. And stuff needs to be done for everybody of all colors to like deal with their intergenerational bullshit because we're all kind of messy. Hence why we're perpetuating weird shit on each other globally right now.
Well, and there's been studies that have shown, like, I believe it's in mice, like, if you cause trauma to the mom, the newborn will inherit those fears just through experience, through the chemicals that the mother releases.
Oh, you're like formed in utero, like way before you're born. You're pretty like faded already, personality wise and stuff. Yeah. Yeah. It's very interesting.
But, and so I think like we have no struggles. We have no barbarians at the gates unifying us.
But that's and there's no like patriotism. We don't what's Canada? What's being Canadian? If you say you're Canadian, you're supposed to be an asshole now, right? And hate yourself and be like, I don't know, like this sort of like apologetic thing when we were supposed to be this like land of the free, right? Like this place where you could come and get a piece of land to live on and like build a business or a farm or whatever and take care of yourself, and prosper.
Well, yeah,
we build a future.
Like, like our
intergenerational wealth.
Yeah, and we have the right to life and liberty here too, and freedom of our person. So if they can take away our jobs, like that's our livelihood.
That's
right?
That's your like. That's
full circle. If the government can collude with corporations to push people out of their jobs in the name of preserving public health resources, right? So that's really what it is. It's what we're being sold. It's not really about saving lives. It's about preserving public health resources, not taxing the healthcare system.
Yeah.
Then where does that go from there?
Well, and
many other things.
Well, and it's worrisome in terms of where corporations, how much influence, and everyone rags on. Look at the amount of money in the U.S. Look at how much money is there. Like, they're corrupt to the core. Okay, but the same thing happens in Canada. I did a whole podcast on just SNC-Lavalin and their bribing of politicians, the type of stuff. And Justin Trudeau was in bed with them. He fired, a Mr. Progressive. Like,
Lavalин's a mess, and they screwed around with what's her name, Wilson Raybould.
Yeah,
and like tried to strong arm her into letting SNC-Lavalin do deferred prosecution. And now look, like days after the election, it comes out that the RCMP is suing SNC-Lavalin again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's kind of what prompted it.
Exact same bullshit. And I said to, like, at my company, I said, and this is going to tie in with this shit with SNC-Lavalin and the government and all of this. I said to the president of my division, I said, look, I want to ask you something. You're a businessman. You're well-educated and experienced. So if I told you I wanted to bring in a new vendor to sell us some product for something on our line, asphalt or granules or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I said, the only thing is, in the past 20 years, they've had 71 criminal cases judged against them. Mm-hmm. That's just the judgments against them. Who knows how many have been brought to court, but 71 judgments against them, totaling $4.7 billion, which is just to like put that in some kind of frame of reference, $630,000 a day.
Yeah.
A day.
Yeah.
For the past 20 years, they've paid out $630,000 a day in criminal fines. This is publicly available information.
Yeah. Shit. Well, and I said,
would you want to work with them? Would you give them the contract? And he's like, well, I don't know. I'm not sure what you mean. I'd have to have more information. I said, they sell asphalt, they sell granules, but they've had all these judgments in court, criminal, for racketeering, fraud, misrepresenting statistics, bribing, kickbacks, all this kind of stuff. So would you work with them? Well, I can't say. I said, well, that's who you're asking me to submit to, like to take medicine from. Mm-hmm. That's Pfizer in 20 years.
Well, and
$130,000 a day.
Yeah, and there was a couple things. Fuck, I can't remember what the hell I was going to say now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. So I kind of scratched on the SNC stuff, and it was actually it was in Syria that they had like a very big a very lucrative deal that they
and Libya too, charged. Right? With Gaddafi.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, it was with Gaddafi too. It was and
millions. They were keeping more than $10 million in cash on hand in a safe in Libya. And they got told by the Canada Revenue Agency, they were like, nobody needs to have that much money on it.
Yeah. But so I was going to say, so my concern, like I said, everyone worries about the United States and the amount of money in there. So why would you allow for the same thing to happen here? Mm-hmm. And that's scary to me. But I know. Okay, so we've been going for almost 2 hours. So I guess ultimately, so when they told you in September that you have to get the vaccine, or you have to, or you're canned. What I guess was that more or less like the end of it, that you're on permanent whatever leave, and that's kind of where everything is just, that's like
until the policy changes, or I am holding out hope, like the one candidate for the Manitoba PC leadership who would then take over the premier role for the next 2 years, Shelley Glover, she does not support the mandates. So there's a chance that could end up like getting a bill passed in the House in Manitoba banning the mandate. However, it's a bit tricky because I'm technically employed in Ontario.
Yeah, well, and Rob Ford was he was a very big a big proponent of saying no, vaccines won't be a thing, and people seem to forget. So was Justin Trudeau.
Yeah,
he said Canada will never be a country of mandates. And look at where we've gone. And Rob Ford, dead.
Doug Ford,
Yeah, he was saying, no, we're never doing it. Yeah, we're never doing it. And then Trudeau, dangled $1 billion in his face, and he suddenly flipped. Son of a bitch. Well, get $1 billion. Yeah, you'll suck a dick for $1 billion.
Yeah, I think that's some of why Pallister here in Manitoba might have stepped down, though, honestly, because it was like basically they brought the restrictions, they took them all off, and then they brought them back within like 2.5 weeks, eh? And
I'm not a fan of what he decided to do. He took the easy route. Instead of making the right decision, he took the easy.
Yeah,
and he just
backed out.
Well, and he was the word that stuck in my head that you brought up at the beginning, you'll get your privileges back. And I've had people push back and say, well, maybe he should have said your old rights back. No, nothing, that doesn't change. Once they've taken them away, that they're no longer rights. They are privileges by the definition. They are not rights. So
and that's why I've always hated that word in discussion of social issues, because it's not a privilege. The way I live a nice life, I grew up in a decent home. Like I said, my parents are, stayed together, and I lived in a middle class house. I got good opportunities. All of that stuff. I still also did a bunch of stupid shit. It didn't preclude me from that, but I have nice things. I've had the opportunity to make good money and have a nice home and stuff. And I don't think those are privileges. I think everybody deserves to be able to access that pretty readily in a healthy society.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I just wanted to bring this up, and maybe we'll start wrapping it up pretty soon.
Yeah.
So there's been a big push for, racial diversity and racial equity. And it brought me back, seeing all this stuff happening. So the one article that I have was actually it was from USA Today, and it's an opinion piece. So, but, so they're talking about racial equity is very important. That, people of immutable characteristics are either behind or ahead based on how many check boxes you check off in your oppression life. And I was watching a video, and it was, some whatever. A guy had a bunch of I think it was like high school kids or university people. Maybe he was a university student. And they were saying, they were all trying to run a race. And so he asked questions like, if you grew up in a household without your parents, take a step forward or take a step back. If you grew up where you didn't know if you had enough, if you wouldn't be able to eat, if you didn't know if you were going to eat the next day, take a step back. And they kept adding more and more, which the typical things you would think of someone in a poverty situation, not a racial situation. And the guy's going, and he keeps going, did you grow up, did you complete high school? Take a step. And he kept going. And I'm like, son of a bitch. He said everything that happened to me. So, my parents split. I had to drop out of school. Sorry, everyone. I'm a high school dropout. I also have a post-secondary degree, so fuck you.
Right. And that's the thing, too, is it doesn't put you in a box necessarily.
No, everyone looks at me as though I'm white. And actually, everyone, I'm Aboriginal, so fuck you twice. So,
there's...
But when it's only skin deep, that is like the antithesis of being shallow, of only seeing someone skin deep.
Or when your opinion holds more weight simply for that reason, it's tough too, right?
Yeah.
Or it holds less weight when I'm not allowed to. I mean, I can't tell you, like I literally had several people decide that I'm now a white supremacist because I've opposed mandates.
Yeah.
Right?
And I'm like, whoa, so Dolly,
ridiculous.
Just pump the brakes a sec.
But if you look at the statistics, it's minorities that don't want to get it because they don't trust the government. And I brought this up last time was, well, if you look at, the government says that if you go into this certain school and you are educated, you'll be a better human for it. But then you learn that the atrocities that happened at the government's behest that said, hey, this is for your own good. You think people are especially in minority groups that have been systemically ostracized from the community? Yeah, I would understand why they're a little hesitant.
I know, and bleeding heart white folks are out putting their orange shirts out, and don't get me wrong, like I again, like I empathize with all of this stuff. but they're out there acknowledging that things were done. Like, for what it's worth, the white government and white Catholic people experimented on kids in residential schools. They carried out nutritional experiments, and they gave them experimental vaccines and medicines as well.
Yeah.
And then we're finding like mass graves of children. Like, yeah, that is concerning. So how come you can literally, like, at the exact same time, acknowledge that the government committed these atrocities? And this is really not that long ago.
It's the 1990s was the final residential school shutdown.
Right, like 92. And then at the same time, also be like, no, everything that the government is shoving down your throat right now.
Yeah. It's either cognitive dissonance or willful ignorance. And I'm not sure which one's worse.
Well, like, it's like, okay, so a bunch of leftists are out there being like, we need to do what the government and big pharma and corporations and 2% are telling us to do. But don't worry, I'm still anti-establishment. This is just a coincidence.
Yeah, like, that's not punk rock.
Fuck, exactly.
You're saying one thing, but then your actions are doing something completely different.
No, they're not. No, they're not. They're completely in line with, as Amy said, with big government, with big institutions that control the information and literally tell you what you can and cannot think.
But they fancy themselves anti-establishment.
That's what I'm saying. Like, they're still like, though they're anti-government, they're anti-whatever, but yet they'll bend over and take it up the tailpipe. Like, they'll just do it. Like
Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez shows up in her Eat the Rich dress, right? Like,
you are the rich.
Yeah. And I mean, fine, have your statement, but like, you don't understand. Like, you're saying this while minority groups are being negatively impacted.
Or if you look at that,
and poor kids are being negatively impacted by your fucked up pandemic measures. So,
and if you look at that, like, what happened there? Like, does anyone remember the Hunger Games? You remember Capital City, where it was all the opulence and wealth, and they were eating so much food they would drink Ipecac so they could drink and eat more, while all the surrounding areas were struggling to survive. And it was, the Hunger Games was for the elite's entertainment.
Yeah,
that's what that was about. Does anyone see that when you hear? And I'm not like a climate change denier, but when you hear, Bill Gates, you hear Al Gore, you hear all these people saying, the ocean levels are rising, but you have a private jet and you just bought like oceanfront property. So if you're the one sounding the alarm saying get the fuck out, but you're doing that exact opposite, I'm just observing. I watch a lot more than anything. So I'm looking at what you're doing, because what you do. So for anyone that plays football, you never look at, the upper part of the body. You don't. You look at their hips. As Shakira said, hips don't lie. You watch what their hips are doing, because that tells you where they're going. So I'm watching the moves they're making. They're getting out of cities. They're buying, Bill Gates is buying. He just bought like a massive stake. I believe it was either in CN or CP.
Yeah, and he owns more farmland than anybody else.
Yeah, so
in the United States.
Why are you I look at that and say, well, if you're supposed to be environmentalist and all this type of stuff, why are you doing that? And you see a lot of people doing
W5 that. And like, why isn't Diane Sawyer like asking him why the fuck he's buying railways and farmland,
Because that's what's going to control all of us in the end.
I know, but we don't have even any investigative journalists anymore. Like, there's nobody who wants a scoop.
Well, because they're all being
just
paid,
like, written off
and
as
told
not
what
being
to do.
A viable media source.
Well, right? And I've been a big fan of Project Veritas. I think James O'Keefe, he might get some things wrong, but it's not him. He's not saying it. He's taking these people's words as, true, and he tries to give the best information possible. And I've followed James for quite a while, and I've come to trust him in what he's doing. It's a nonprofit. They literally make no money off of this.
Yeah.
they're not a for-profit business. They're literally a non-profit.
Yeah.
So, and then when people, I think when, people see like the Chinese run state government, they run all the news. Well, our government funds our news.
I know.
Do you not see the correlation? Anyone else?
There was an article in the Globe about the slow infiltration of Chinese culture.
Oh, it's here.
Canada. Did you read that piece?
I don't even have to, because I know I've brought this up before, that there was a massive satellite company in Canada. Chinese company bought it out. It's now Chinese technology. There was a thing about what is it called? ARM, which makes semiconductors. It was like some of the most revolutionary, the most critical stuff in cars. Almost in any electronics is our semiconductors. China took it over. They took a governing stake and they say, "Hey, that's our technology now. Go fuck yourself."
Huh.
Oh, there's tons. Like, if people think that Canada is so much purer than the United States, dude, I got a bridge to sell you to nowhere. Like, no, there are tons, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars invested in Canada, in Vancouver. And they can't do this. They can't say, "Hey, because you're Caucasian, we're not going to rent to you." But they will put ads in Mandarin. Well, if you don't speak Mandarin, you don't know what that sign is saying.
Yeah.
So, it's happening in Africa. If you look at the whole thing that happened in Afghanistan, what embassy stayed open? I'll give you guys want to take a guess? China's.
Yes.
China's embassy stayed open while Afghanistan was falling. And now China is investing fuck tons of money into Afghanistan. But, okay. Oh, it's been 2 hours. Jesus.
Yeah. And there's
so much more.
So much more that we could talk about. Yeah. I didn't even get to my beef about kids in school. And,
oh my God. Right? I know. I kept meaning to try to bring shit up about that, but
yeah. Well, let's just talk again tomorrow.
Right? We'll just do this again. Well, part 2.
Yeah, I'd be happy to have you come back on. Yeah, we could talk about more stuff. That was
invite me again. Let's talk about kids in school and other causes of death. I have done a lot of research into what else kills children a lot more than COVID.
Well, don't just be careful, because you remember that meme about with the tombstone, "I did my own research."
Yeah. Well, heaven forbid I actually look at Statistics Canada myself.
Right.
Yeah.
It's hilarious because that people say, "What's your source?" And I'm like, Stats Canada. And they're like, "Well, that's probably not up to date." I'm like, seriously, that's how much you're set. Is that I'm like, Stats Canada, and they're like, nope, that's not a good source for me.
Yeah, well, and so I guess just quickly, I try, any news sources I find, when I say, when I give my opinion on something, I've seeked out information. I have a friend of mine, and he's a tremendous resource because he's actually a scientist. So when I find studies and I'm like, "Hey, dude, I don't understand this. Can you look this over and kind of give me a synopsis?" With the initial claims, the vaccine was lowering your testosterone or lowering your sperm cell count, making you infertile. And he's looking at the studies like, "No, that's bullshit. If anything, it's actually making it better." So I don't know. Okay, well, that rules that out for me.
How to lie with statistics, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so I look at a lot of that information and I try to make the most best informed opinion that I can. So
yeah, my cat is circling on my dining table as though she's gonna jump up at the chandelier. Yeah, you better move, girl. She's not usually like that. We got ladybugs all over. Do you guys have ladybugs all over in the house?
No.
This time of year, they're coming in the house like crazy everywhere.
Are they the ladybugs or are they the Asian
who knows? Maybe I'm not going to have any lilies in my
fucking Asians.
But oh my goodness.
You have to look. Apparently, like I had looked this up because I'm like, well, I'm so confused. Like, which ones are the Asian beetles and which ones are the ladybugs? Because ladybugs are sweet. I love them. Anyway.
But they're welcome.
I know, but
not no Asians though.
When you well, just because the other ones they're not very good. They're destructive.
They're bad. They're very destructive.
So but with those
isn't
ones,
it like an M shape on their head or something?
Depending on how you look at it, it's either an M or a W, where your traditional ladybug has a black face with like 2 white dots or whatever on it, where the Asian lady beetles have more white, but you'll notice like a W or an M. The colors don't mean anything. Like you can't be like, oh no, those ones are orange, so it's those ones. That doesn't mean anything. It's all about their face. So so if you see them and you look at their face and they're just a good ladybug, then put them in a plant. If they're the Asian ones, put them outside.
Kill them. Just kill them. So, unfortunately.
So Amy, what are you doing now?
So I freelance now. Like I always have freelanced. I do just drafting residential, like commercial stuff. And I offer full services for permit ready drawings. So
okay. Do you have like a website or?
Yeah, it's mostly up and running. My company is called Paper Birch Drafting Company.
Okay. We'll make sure that maybe just send that to Kim and we'll make sure that that's in the description. So
cool. Yeah. Thanks a lot for the plug there.
Yeah. And work out with Tyler when you can come on for a part 2, because there's definitely lots I want to talk about more.
Yeah. I would love to talk about kids and school and like everything else. Totally. Obviously we could have talked a lot longer right now. So
just quickly before we all say our goodbyes. So Kim brought up in Canada, so approximately 1 million people who are LGBTQ plus, blah 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 blah, accounting for about 4% of the population.
Okay.
So
As in 2018.
Yeah, I think that 1 in 5 is like, okay, like I'll say this and let's get the fuck out of here. Sorry. Was I seen, and I brought this up last episode, was a woman transitioned to a man so that she could dress up as a drag queen.
Oh.
Yeah. So
how about you just do what you want anyway and not have to like take hormones or have surgery?
I just dress up as a freaking drag queen. Like, I don't understand.
Like, just dress however you want. That's what I mean. Like, how about you just be you without having to have surgery or take hormones into your body? Like, wouldn't that be the best way? Is if everybody bees themselves?
I would think so, but then again, what do I know?
I like want to belt out. Is it a Jan Arden song? Anyway.
Okay. With that, Kim, Kim, you want to take us out of here?
All right. Thanks everybody for listening. Thank you so much, Amy, for coming on our podcast. It was a lot of fun, and I can't wait to have you on again. Anybody who's listening, same things, like, subscribe, leave a comment, thumbs up, thumbs down. Check us out on all of the places that we are stalking you in the description box below. And that's about it. Until next time, have a great day, everyone. Bye.